So you're telling me that here in Italy, we, the people that live here, citizens and non-citizens alike, are not allowed to travel to all parts of the country. We still happen to also have a curfew in place. And you're saying that now is the right time to start welcoming people back to the country? Is it just me, or is welcoming tourists back at this point in time into Italy putting the carriage before the horse? And with the decisions that have been made and how wonderfully things have gone so far, I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up back in lockdown by September. Oh, I hope I'm wrong. Hello there, I'm Rafael di Furia, back at it again for another Friday night, for another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter, and another update on what is happening here in Italy. And you know, these updates, I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking about renaming these updates the Roman Shenanigans Report, because that's what I feel like I'm talking about every time I go through one of these videos and end up reading the news, or even end up reading the statements directly from some of these people's mouths or their Twitters, whatever it may be, because gosh, don't get me started. Although, you know what, maybe this is the perfect time to get me started, just because it does happen to be another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. So, again, if you are watching this on YouTube and not listening to it as an audio-only podcast, you may see me looking over, and I'm just looking at some of my notes here. Italy's Prime Minister Draghi said the other day that let's not wait until mid-June for the EU pass. In mid-May, tourists will be able to get the Italian pass. Then he went on to say something that I might feel is a little bit irresponsible to say, that I might argue that point, that he said the time has come to book your trips to Italy. Also, while I may criticize the plan and methods for opening back up, and while I may not be in full agreement with how things are going, I just want to make it clear, I am all for Italy opening up ASAP and getting back to normal. Not something that resembles normal, but actual normal. And like I said, with the current rules that we have in place and everything else going on, I can't help but feel as though this seems a little ass backwards. And while it is nice to hear talk of the country opening up again, requiring a pass to get in the country, or even to get to some parts of the country that are restricted, is not normal. That's just the exact opposite of normal, because in the past, normal has been just being able to go from place to place. So there are some restrictions on some parts of the country just to even get there to begin with. But then on top, like I was talking about before, we do have a curfew in place that goes from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. So if you are coming back here to Italy for a vacation, or even not back, but for the first time, this may mean that you might not get the full experience of what actually being in Italy is like. You'll have to be back at your hotel by 10 p.m. There's going to be no bars or restaurants or clubs or whatever it may be. For those of you who enjoy that type of activities while you're on vacation, which I know a lot of people coming to Italy do enjoy, especially going to some of the beach locations or wherever you may be going here in Italy, those types of activities won't be allowed. Like, I mean, no dancing clubs are open at this time, at least to my knowledge, and I would be shocked if any were. But even just taking it back to the curfew just for a second, because there has been talk of trying to push it back to 11 o'clock rather than keeping it at 10 o'clock. But even though there has been this argument and this fight in the government to make that happen, this is something that is not looking like it's going to happen, at least yet. You never know. It could come up at some point, but for the time being, it seems as though that curfew will be pretty solid at 10 o'clock. And unless the rules are changed regarding the mask situation here, like actually needing to wear a mask when you're out and about and close to other people, otherwise the fines start at 400 euros, I can't help but wonder how many tourists are going to get flagged for that and actually get fined. I mean, that's going to be a thing that I would assume, especially people coming from certain places that don't have as strict rules or mandatory mask situation, that they may come to Italy and see like that we're living in a different way, but not necessarily get what exactly it is that we have to do from day to day. And then on top, as of the time of this recording, we can't even go to the mall on the weekend here. Like, that's something that's not allowed. And it's something that's become such a large issue, especially for the people who own these stores and the people who are just trying to get back to something resembling normal. There are actually going to be protests over these weekend closures at malls around the country. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be the Tuesday following the upload of this episode when these protests are going to happen. This is something that we have been seeing. There have been some protests in the past weeks, and with what's been going on, as somebody who lives here, I cannot say that it's surprising in any way that this is the situation that we see now. But getting back to what the Prime Minister was talking about, and actually tourists coming back to Italy, it seems as though vaccinated tourists may be able to travel to Italy by mid-May, but what date exactly? That's something that hasn't been defined as of the time of this recording. It's just the middle of May sometime. And regarding this specialized Italian pass that will come about a month before the European travel pass, the European Green Pass, the Italian definitions haven't been completely finalized yet, and I've seen conflicting information as to who exactly is going to be allowed through and allowed into Italy. I've seen some reports saying that it's only people from the US and the UK. Some reports saying that it's only people from Europe, US, and UK. And then some saying from the EU as well as from outside of the EU. But Italy's Minister of Tourism, Massimo Gravaglia, said, and above all, for tourists outside of the EU. So he seems to be saying that, yes, tourists outside of the EU, but I've seen other reports saying no. I would like to take it from the horse's mouth, but at this point, there seems to be some conflicting information out there that makes it a little tricky to say what's going to happen. And even what I talk about in this video may happen, it may not happen, based on how things have been moving in the past months, and especially since the end of last year. There have been some announcements of what may actually come before it does, and there seems to almost be this kind of like waiting to see how people react to what will happen, and then they move forward. Maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but that's the way it kind of looks, because there were a lot of times last year that they made rules and then people flipped out and were not happy about that. But then it started to happen where we were seeing about what rules may be coming, and then from there people would react poorly or they would just be okay, and then the government seemed to kind of take a little bit of a note from that reaction there and then move forward. Even though I'm sure officially that's not what they're doing, it's what it looks like. But also on this list of people who would be able to potentially get these travel passes to Italy, the definitions, again, are a little funny. I've seen some definitions saying anybody who has had it and has the antibodies and is not at risk of getting it. And then I've seen other lists saying that only people who are vaccinated will get it. And then even that, it seems as though there's a possibility that individuals who've had the AstraZeneca vaccine may not actually be able to enter into Italy. And again, it's funny that there haven't been these exact definitions because, again, Minister of Tourism Gravaglia said that Draghi's announcement was very clear. Oh yes, Mr. Gravaglia, clear. Very, very clear. Now you see why I'm thinking about renaming these update segments the Roman Shenanigans Report. Even from an American standpoint, I do kind of find this interesting to see how the Americans are defining what the situation is in Italy. And I'm curious, especially with what's happened in Australia, with Australians not being allowed back into the country from India. Is the US going to start trying to do something similar? I've heard from some Americans that they actually haven't been able to get back to their country. So it's very interesting. And even the CDC has listed Italy at level 4, which is very high level of COVID-19, with an advisory stating that because of the current situation in Italy, even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk of getting and spreading COVID-19 variants and should avoid all travel to Italy. And of course, I ain't no doctor, as I have said many, many times, but isn't this exactly what the vaccine is supposed to stop? Maybe I'm wrong, but That was the impression that I've been under. But even the Italian foreign minister, Luigi Di Maio, said on the second day of the G7 foreign ministers meet in London this past Wednesday that we are ready to welcome them into our enchanting regions. And this next part, he didn't say, even though there are still a couple of these regions that are somewhat restricted. And I do have to say that there is something that is interesting that has come from the discussion of all of these travel passes, because there has been a bit of pushback, but not by anybody who is against vaccinations, but because of privacy concerns. That is a big thing here in Europe about information, who holds on to the information, who owns the information, and so on. And in Alto Adige, for example, you will have to go to a designated center or get an at-home DIY kit to show your immunity just to be able to even go to an indoor restaurant. And because privacy is a big concern of European citizens, there are now lawyers that are challenging these passes, in fact, on the basis of privacy. And they are arguing that it could potentially be damaging to the personal data of each person in ownership of one of these passes. And I would say, hey, that's actually a very fair argument to make about the passes. That how is it going to be handled? Who's going to be handling it? Is it a governmental body? What kind of security measures are they using? Or is it going to be a private company that are issuing these? Or is it a local health authority? Is it a doctor? I mean, I'm sure, at least here in Italy, it would probably be something along the lines of getting it from your local health authority and your doctor, some combination of the two at the very least. But it's still, what are these people using for their security in their system? And how secure are these systems to begin with? Or even the privacy of walking down the street and going into a restaurant. Is it necessary maybe for a waiter to know your personal medical history? I think I may have mentioned this in a recent episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter, but I could be wrong here. Something that I've been seeing coming from the United States is these post-vaccine pictures and selfies that people are taking. And that's something that really seems to come from North America mostly. I've seen some other places maybe that people are doing this from, like friends from around the world. And that's something that I don't see coming from Italy, like people doing the selfie and making a big announcement to the world. That's something that I don't understand why a private personal medical intervention is something that needs to be posted online. I understand that people are very excited about getting it. It's just when it comes to your personal medical interventions and personal medical history, I don't know if I necessarily am somebody who believes that it's that it's information that everybody should be having and that it's something that the whole world should know. And in fact, my friends who have gotten it, I in fact don't want to know. That's just maybe my personality type, that if you got a surgery, I maybe would say, hey, like, look, if you need help, I'll be happy to help you after the fact. But if you're getting a little thing here done, if you're going in for a little Botox or you're going in, okay, you can't compare Botox to a vaccine. But if you're going in for a little medical intervention, that's your personal private life that I don't need to know about. And I feel the same way, vice versa, that whatever happens in my life is not necessarily for discussion, even among my friends. That's just, maybe I'm old fashioned, maybe I'm just a private person, but it's something that I don't fully get. And so I think even just to an extent, having this travel pass does almost feel like a violation of privacy, because you have to, by having this, you will make it known what your personal medical history or part of your personal medical history is. So even though I don't think that this is actually going to go anywhere, I am very curious to see what will be happening with these travel passes and these lawyers who are arguing and fighting against this possibility. Like I said, I really don't feel like it's going to go anywhere, but I'm just curious about the theoretical laws here that may come into play, or even where it could go if it's actually deemed that it wouldn't be a privacy concern. Like what might come in the future based on these decisions. based on potential case law that may come into play. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Of course, I wanted to try to bring this update on what is happening here. I always prefer not to actually go into updates unless there is an actual finalized update. But this seems solid enough that there could be something to look at here. So I would say if I were in the States right now, I wouldn't be buying my tickets yet, but I would be getting very close to actually clicking that button, getting ready to go. And that will be the real test to see what things will actually look like moving forward and to see if we'll be going back into lockdown. But if we end up back in lockdown later this year, I can't say that it would be a huge surprise. I really hope and pray that I'm wrong, but let's see. Only time will tell. And just as we are able to go out and about again, get around the country, and even go and sit at a cafe like you saw me do in my last video here on my YouTube channel, now it is springtime. So that means for those of us with springtime seasonal allergies, yeah, I'm stuck at home again. I've tried every pill under the sun for allergies, and it's a mess. So I've got to wait until the springtime madness is over. Otherwise, I would have recorded this episode at a cafe just outside here locally, but this is how it goes. I'm grateful that I've been able to get out just at all. So it's just that little bit more, just pushing a little bit harder, but we'll see. And of course, thank you all so much for joining me on another Friday night. If you didn't catch on my audio only podcast last Friday, I also uploaded an audio exclusive episode about things that I don't talk about here on YouTube, just to the audio podcast. So be sure to check that out. And for those of you who have been watching here on YouTube, a huge thank you to those of you who've subscribed and been liking and sharing these videos with your friends, and an even bigger thank you to those of you who are patrons to help and make content like this possible on a monthly basis. Thank you all so very much from the bottom of my heart. It is because of all of you that I have been able to keep on pushing forward with this project through all of this past year. And also for those of you who are listening to this as an audio-only podcast, a big thank you to those of you who have subscribed or followed, whatever it may be, on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. And also, if you are on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to leave a written review if any of these past episodes have been helpful or you enjoyed them, or if you have any kind of enjoyment from these episodes, be sure to let me know in the written reviews, or even here on YouTube in the comment section down below. As always, of course, I am Rafael de Furia. Thank you all for joining me again on another Friday night. Stay safe, stay healthy. I look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great one. Later.